Hello, I'm Richard Thomason, and I'm at the Sprague River Camp meeting, and we're going to look at the 1843 chart and discuss about what it is and some history behind it, and just do a little study, and then we'll look at the 1850 in a few minutes. I have a few quotes here from Ellen White, uh, where she talks about the charts. The first one's from The Great Controversy, page 392, verse point 1. Says, as early as 1842, the direction given in the prophecy to write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that they may run that readeth it, has suggested to Charles Fitch the presentation of a prophetic chart to illustrate the visions of Daniel and the Revelation, and the publication of this chart was regarded as a fulfillment of prophecy given by Habakkuk. So in Habakkuk, I will read what Habakkuk had to say. Let's get to it right here. So in Habakkuk chapter 2, starting in verse 1, it says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch and see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run with it that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So here we're told a command that when the people of the earth come to the Christians and they say, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you not keeping the Sunday? What is the belief of your faith? It says when we're reproved, we're supposed to make these visions plain upon tables and let them answer for us. So that was the Great Controversy quote we read. Now I want to read another quote from Ellen White out of Early Writing. And this chapter is called The Gathering Time. And the reason why it's called The Gathering Time is because this chart was made in the gathering time. Right before that, it was the scattering time. But here it says, September 23rd, the Lord showed me that he had stretched out his hand a second time to recover his remnant people, and that effort should be redoubled in this gathering time. In the scattering, Israel was smitten and torn, but now in the gathering time, God would heal and bind up his people. In the scattering, efforts made to spread the truth had very little effect, accomplished but little or nothing. But in the gathering, God has sent his hand to gather his people. Efforts to spread the truth will have their designed effect. All should be united and zealous in the work. I saw that it was wrong for any to refer this gathering, for examples, to govern us in the gathering. For if God should not do more for us than he did, do it more for us now than he did then, Israel should never be gathered. I have seen that the 1843 chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that it should not be altered, and the figures were as he wanted them, and that his hand was over and hid a mistake on some of the figures, so that none could see it until his hand was removed. So we're told that Ellen White saw in vision that this chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that it was not to be altered unless by inspiration, but also that the Lord hid a mistake. Now we know as Adventists that Jesus went in the most holy place in 1844. Well, when we look up here, 677 to 1843 is 2,520 years. But it's not really 1843 because of we use the Jewish calendar we have to make adjustments because this is a Roman calendar. We're in Roman calendar time. This is in Jewish calendar time. Anyways, so the 43 was supposed to be 44. And then so you see right there it should have been 44, right here it should have been 44, and right here it should have been 44. So how many mistakes is that? That's one mistake in 3 places. It's the same mistake. So Ellen White says, later on after she, in early writings, she says, this one's actually correct because that's what the 1335. Oh, okay. But she says, the hand of the Lord was removed from the figures and the mistake was explained. So the mistake, a single mistake, was explained, which is found in a few places. They saw that the prophetic periods which reached to 1844 and that the same evidence which they had presented to show that the prophetic periods closed in 1843 proved that they would terminate in 1844. So the math was right, everything was correct, but there was a slight error in using Roman time instead of Jewish time, and that caused us to think it was 1843. And there's also another little thing with the calendar I'm not going to get into, but anyways, there was no error on this chart. The mistake was the mistake we were making. Because God didn't change the chart when he fixed it, he said he hid the mistake. So we kept making the mistake, and we moved his hand, and we went, oh, the chart's telling us 1844, not 1843. So anyways, it wasn't a mistake by God, it was a mistake by man, but the chart was actually correct. So when we look at the chart, we have this line of numbers going down from the top to the bottom. Okay, this one here is basically what has happened to God's people throughout time. Over here, when we start out with Daniel 2, with this image, we have the kingdoms of Babylon, which are the enemies of God, right? They're the pagan countries. And we also have Daniel 7, represents the lion, the bear, and the leopard. And then you have Daniel 8, but these are all the pagan nations. And notice right here, pagan Rome, right where Christ was crucified by the Romans. But over here we have, this is all Daniel. This side of the chart is all Daniel. This side of the chart is all Revelation. Ellen White says that Revelation and Daniel are the same book. So here we have the red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and the beast with the head of a lion, the body of a bear, and the feet of a lion, or the feet of a bear, and 7 heads and 10 horns with 10 crowns upon those horns. And then we have the woman sitting on the beast with the crowns and the horns, which we know is Revelation, or Papal Rome, or the papacy. So now, when God was telling the story of the history of the nations, in this story, he gave us metals, right? But then when he told us again, he gave us beasts, right? So every time God explains the story, it's always done in a different symbology. But it's always the same story. Because this is the same story as this, and the same story as this, right? So if Revelation and Daniel are the same book, then we have a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. Well, if we look at the beast here, the lion has 1 head, 2 heads, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heads with 10 horns. What does the dragon have? 7 heads and 10 horns. And the heads with the horns represent kingdoms. So this dragon, this isn't just a dragon with a bunch of heads. This is the nations of the earth in a different form than they chose to use in this form. And here you see it again. This time they have the 7 heads and 10 horns. This has 7 heads and 10 horns. So these are actually the same. But we know that this one has the head of a lion, the body of a leopard, and the feet of a bear. So we know this is talking about the pagan kings. And they have the crowns, which are kings. So this is a picture of Daniel 7 in dragon form. Now, so one of the things, and as we said, Charles Lynch? Charles Fitch was in the making of this chart, but it says published by J.B. Hines. I think that just means that J.B. Hines published it, but it was actually drawn out and made by Charles Fitt. So now, how many 2520s do you see on this chart?
1,
3.
or 3.
Okay, where do you see 3?
1, 2. Just 2, I guess.
Why do you see 3?
1 down the middle.
Okay, so this right here could be a 2520 because what does the feet represent? But it's clay and iron put together, which represents the kingdom of pagan Rome. I mean papal Rome, right? So that's actually 1260 years of feet of, because we had three and a half times and half time when the papacy would rule, and the feet represent the papacy. So you have
No. No, you have 4.
what?
4 25
Well, they're all over the place. Anyways, so you have 1260 years of pagan oppression, followed by 1260 years of papal oppression, which makes 2520. If I say 2520, I mean 1260 and 1260 makes 2520. And of course, we have it both there. Now, 677 to 1843 is 2520. So right down the middle, there's 2520. But really, the way I like to look at it is not looking out to the middle, but I like this little trim, this little border all the way around. The top of the border is 677. The bottom of the border is 1843. And all of God's prophecies, the 1335, the 1290, the 1260, all of these prophecies fit inside this border. And this is like God's perfect 7, because 2520 is 7 times. This is God's masterpiece of history that he planned out, which is it's the number 7. And so now, there's two 2520s. One with the tribe of Judah and one with the tribe of Israel. Now the one with the tribe of Judah is the one we're looking at here, we see, of 677 to 1843. But I'm going to submit to you that the other 2520 is on here, and it's that one up there. And I show you how I get there. If you look at that problem up there, 7, 12, 84, 30, 3 and a half, 12, 24, 30, or 42, 30, these are the exact, this is doubled, and this is doubled, because when you times 12 times 3 and a half, you get 42, but you times 7 times 12, you get 84. This problem is directly under that one, and the math is done exactly the same. It's tying those two problems together, and here we're seeing that this is the 1260 of pagan or papal Rome, but this is the full. This is not the half of the 7. This is half of the 7. The other half of the 7, and it starts up at Leviticus 26, 28 through 34, saying it's telling you that that's the 2520 at the bottom tells you it's 2520, but when these two problems are exactly the same and lined up exactly, and this one has the 1260, then we know that's the other 1260, so that one starts at 723 BC for Israel.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Wow.
The connection, it's a hidden connection,
It's hidden.
but it's totally connected because it's the exact same problem and the exact same line on the same chart.
Because God knows.
But this one's clearly not for Judah, because this one ends in 1798, because 1260 we know is the time of the papacy. And we're right next to papal Rome, and here's the problem for papal Rome. So this is half of that equation. So there's actually, both of them are on this chart. But this is the one we want to focus on, because here's the thing, out of the two 2520s, one went to the 10 tribes and one to the 2 tribes, right? Who are we concerned with? The one that God's going to reject, or the one that's going to carry the line of Christ?
Carry the line.
To carry the line of Christ, which is through the tribe of Judah, which was of the 2, not the 10. Right, so this is God's people making it through time. This is God's people kind of not doing so well, because God said he will no longer be a people, and Israel was turned into Samaritans. And
they didn't make it to 1843 in that line.
no, they don't.
Yeah.
Now, well, they don't make it past. They don't make it to 723. It's 723. God said, "You will no longer be a people." So, in Isaiah chapter 7, God, the 10 northern tribes are going to come down and attack Judah, and this is the first time that God's people have ever attacked their own people. This is civil war. So at that point, God's going, "Your cup is full. Now we have to drink it." Well, the cup is the curse, and the curse is 25:20. So at 723, when the king of Israel got together with the king of Assyria, went down to attack Jerusalem. At that time, Isaiah was called, and he told the king of Judah, "You're not going to have to worry because they're not going to take you over." And within 75 years, that Ephraim will no longer be a people. So what happened to Ephraim? Let me go ahead and read those.
Joined to his idol.
Right, but in Isaiah 7, the way it's worded is what I want to look for here for a second, and that is
Joined his idol, let him alone.
right, and that's probably was declared probably about the same time as this prophecy is happening. So in Isaiah chapter 7, and in verse 9 it says, well, in verse 8, "For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it not be a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely you will not be established." So here we have the Israelites going into Samaria. Now, a lot of people don't understand in the New Testament. You hear this, Jesus is going like, they're going like, "Are you your brother's keeper?" And he says like, "Well, who's my brother?" Well, your brother. So he tells the story. He says, a priest walked by and said, "I'm too busy." A Levite says, "Oh no, I can't do it." But then a Samaritan comes by, and see, I think most people think when the Bible says Samaritan, we're talking about just some heathen from some other nation.
Oh no, they're the Israelites.
They're half
Right.
Jews, they're half Jews or something.
Right. Well, they're not half Jews, they're half Israelites because the Jews were just Judah. But so when you're looking at that, he's not telling you a stranger is your brother. He's saying your brother is your brother.
Right.
And then with the woman at the well, she goes, how is it that a Samaritan woman can speak with an Israelite or a Jew? No, it's a Jew because she is an Israelite. And the reason why we know that, because she said she was Samaritan, and we know there's no such thing as Israelites because she would have said I'm an Israelite, but she said I'm a Samaritan. Why didn't she say I'm an Israelite? Because they were erased. God erased them off the face of the earth. So then she says, "Our father Jacob dug that well." Well, Jacob's the father of Israel, so we know she's an Israelite. But she's no longer called an Israelite because Israelite was no longer a people. So,
And why were they hated so much, the Samaritans? What is it that they did that the Jews hated them so much this time?
well, basically it's because it was like their brethren that tried to attack him and turn their back on him and all that, betrayal and all that stuff. So, and they had their idols and stuff. So, anyways, in this prophecy, which is in Isaiah chapter 7, it starts. Well, let me put it this way: if you have a Bible with Ussher's chronology, it will put dates for every chapter of the Bible. Like it'll say like the 3rd year of this king, and it'll start telling a story. Well, through chronology, you can find out what that year was. So chapter 7 is 742 BC. So when it says within 65 years, Ephraim will no longer be a people. Well, 65 years, what's the score? 20. So 70 is,
That's
and 5.
65.
So within 65 years, you're no longer going to be a people. Well, if you add 65 to 742, you get 677. That's when Judah's going to go into captivity. But it didn't say Judah's going into captivity. It says within 65, Israel was going to be no longer a people. So in between 742 and 677, Israel was going to have its last day. And that's when God said, "You're no longer a people." And they started in 723 BC. Now, so it didn't say Judah. But as you read on, the next thing it says is, ask the Lord a sign and I will give you a sign. And the king goes, oh, I don't want to ask the Lord for a sign. I don't need a sign. And he says, do you weary me? I'm going to give you a sign. I'm going to give you a sign, and a virgin is going to give birth, and his name will be the Emmanuel or something like that.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so this prophecy is not only a prophecy in the Bible, but God's going, I'm going to show you how much this prophecy is a prophecy by having a child born of a virgin. Christ is going to put his stamp on this prophecy and say, this is the prophecy. So when we toss out the 25:20, we're taking out a prophecy that God stamped with the birth from the virgin.
No, wait.
And then after, as soon as it's done saying that, it says, and the land will be devoid of both of her kings, as Israel and Judah. So it meant in the beginning of the chapter it mentions Judah and Israel, but when it talks about the time of 65 years, it says Ephraim, which means Israel, but it doesn't say Judah. But then as you go down a little farther, it says both her kings are going to be removed. Now, so this time, the 1260, ends in 1798, and the other one ends in 1843. But really, we know it's 1844, correct? So what does that make that number right there?
46.
46. And what do we know about the number 46?
How many chromosomes do we have?
Well, it is how many chromosomes we have, but
Up to 10. 10. It has to be law.
so watch this. This is the 25:20 is the destruction of both kingdoms because they disobeyed the Lord and they wouldn't let the land rest. And God told them, He said, if you don't let the land rest, I will have your enemies take you somewhere else, and while you're somewhere else, the land will rest. You can rest. It can rest. My land's going to rest with or without you. Your choice. They chose wrong. So what happens is, okay, so this is like the end of both kingdoms. Now God wants to restore the kingdom, right? Because obviously God wants a kingdom of men to be saved. So in the New Testament, Christ is being about to be stoned, and he says, "Why stone ye me?" And they go, "We don't stone you. We stone you because you, being a man, say that you can rebuild this temple in 3 days." Because he told them, "I'll destroy this temple and build it in 3 days." It took us 46 years to build this temple. Now, what was the time period called for 1260?
3.5.
What was the time period called in
5.5.
history? It was called the Dark Ages.
Oh, the dark age.
But biblically, it was called the falling away. There must be a falling away that the man of sin might be revealed. So this 1260, we went in utter darkness. The Bible, you were burnt to the stake if you had a Bible. You had to learn all kinds of new false teachings in Catholicism, and basically the Pope was just terrorizing everyone. So God wasn't building up a church at this time. He was letting it be torn apart so that we could reveal who the man of sin was. In this case, the woman. But, so when this time was over, God's no longer letting us go into perdition. Now he's got to build us back up. So from 1798 to 1844 is what we call the time of the end. And Ellen White, you can verify this, Ellen White says that's the time of the end. And at the time of the end, in Daniel 12 verses 4 and 9, it says, seal up the book and seal up the book of the vision until the time of the end. So this is all supposed to be sealed, so we can't understand it until 1798 at the time of the end. In 1798, the book is open, and where can we find that? Revelation chapter 10. And the angel comes down with the rainbow over his head and the book in his hand, and he hit one foot on the land and one foot on the sea, and says, take the book out of, here's this book open, take it and eat it. And then it says, and I took the book and I ate it, and it was sweet in my belly and bitter, sweet in my mouth and bitter in my belly. And we know that was the Advent movement. But So the angel came in 1798 with the book open, but we know that Miller didn't actually eat the book till like 1833. And then for 10 years he studied, and he didn't tell anybody. And the Lord keeps on telling him, go tell the world, go tell the world. And he's going like, no. And then he says to the Lord, Lord, all right, if somebody comes and asks me to speak, then I'll go speak. The door instantly knocks, and he opens the door. Oh, Brother Miller, our pastor's going to be gone. We need you to come speak. So that's how he began his ministry. So it took 40, but from 1798 to 1843 or 44 is 46 years, and that's where God was building the new temple. The temple of stone that was in Jerusalem was destroyed, but now God's going to build a new temple, but he's building this temple with living stones. We are the temple. And so now he's got to bring us back to truth. So we're going to start throwing away our rosary beads. We're going to stop baptizing our babies. We're going to start getting rid of all the foolishness, going back to the Bible, and
We're
eventually
move to a country that says
eventually
first without a pope and
right, and
country
eventually
without
we're
king.
going to have the Sabbath revealed. And so we're going to go back to all the Bible truths, which God is reestablishing his people. And then you can read in, well, before I say that, at Mount Sinai, at the first covenant, which is where the 2520 was ratified, when they said, we will be your God, or God will be your God, and you'll be my people. If you'll obey me and keep my commandments, I will give you the rain in due season, I will keep the beast out of your field, I'll do all these blessings for you. But verse 14, but if you will not, I will bring terror and the ague and all these things, and if you don't do all that, then I'm going to punish you 7 times. But a marriage is where you stand before your wife and you say, in sickness and in health, in rich or poor, I do. Well, the Israelites said, we will. This was a marriage between God and his people. And at that marriage, they received 2 tables of stone with the 10 Commandments on it, which was like the wedding gift. Now, when God married Adventism, our message wasn't the 10 Commandments. Our message was the 3 angels' messages, which was fear God and give glory because the hour of his judgment has come. And the only way you can declare the hour is to prove time through history and do the math, and it comes down to the judgment. You can't say the judgment hour has come if you can't prove that this is the right hour. Maybe the judgment was 500 years ago. Maybe it was 1,000 years in the future. Nope, the Bible says through these prophecies that the judgment begins here, and that's when Christ will go into the holy place. So this is the first angel's message. William Miller gave the first angel's message, and what happened was, what's the second angel's message? Come out of Babylon, Babylon has fallen. Well, had Babylon fallen when they gave this message?
as they were giving.
It wasn't fallen when they were giving it, because when they were giving it, they didn't have this chart. And then when we read in the prophecy, the Ellen White's vision that Charles Fitz was led to make the chart, when he made the chart, and now it's all in print, and we have all these dates, and there's a date right there at the bottom, all the pastors are going like, man, if he don't come, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
It's better, we could just kind of slip in the back door later. If we just dump this now, and he comes, then we'll try to be ready for him, but otherwise, I don't want to say this out loud. So all the churches, because of this chart, closed their doors. But who gave us this message? Was it some slick pastor?
God.
It was Christ who came down from the heaven with a rainbow over his head, with one foot on the land, one foot on the sea. Christ gave us this message. And the churches closed the door on his son. And what did God say? No man cometh to me unless he goes through my son. God said, when you close the door on my son, you close the door on yourself. Babylon has fallen. Come out of her, my people. Just all of you, please come. I am no longer going to work with those who close the door on my son. So, that is Babylon has fallen. It wasn't a message that came by itself. It was a reaction to the first message. So now the third angel's message comes, and it is, don't receive the mark. Basically, pick your side. When Elijah was at the top of the mountain, he said, choose you this day who you'll serve, and make it, quit going back and forth. Pick who you're going to serve. So those are the three angels' messages, and this one came, and they came this time. The other chart's on the other side of this wall. Oh. We'll stay here for a minute, and then I guess we'll get some stuff here.
We can move.
Now, one of the things that's very important about this chart is this little corner right here.
Wait, first you forgot to explain that we got two of them.
Two what?
Like the two things at Sinai. You made an agreement.
Oh, okay, yes. Back to the two tables. Okay, so we were given two tables at the marriage, and because our job was to give this message, fear God and give Him glory, it's a prophetic message, and it has time and stuff like that. So this is our message is Adventism. Adventism is always given revelation seminars, right? Isn't that how we get most of our people? Isn't that how all the evangelism around the world brings in millions of people to come into Adventism? Our message is a prophetic message. It's not the law of God. It's the prophecies of God. Because before that, everything was sealed up. But when God unsealed it, He said, here's your new message. Now go. And it says prophesy. And what does it say after it was bitter? He says, thou must prophesy again. So obviously what happened already, we know it didn't happen just in the past because we have to prophesy again. So that's going to be at the end of the world, which is where we are at right now. And also the Bible says in Daniel, it says Daniel will stand in his lot in the last days. So if Daniel's going to stand in his lot in the last days, then Daniel has to do something right now. Is he coming back to life? Well, how's he going to stand in his lot? He's got a job to do. Because this is Daniel standing in his lot. Make it plain upon tables, that he may run who readeth it, because at the end it will speak, and it will not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will not tarry. And the just shall live by their faith. So, following this method, God is basically saying right there, the just shall live by your faith. Right after saying this, He's telling you, if you want to experience righteousness by faith, then do the work I set before you. And when you do what I ask you to do, I'm going to call that righteousness. Because see, Abraham, all he had to do was leave town. He didn't have to start a whole new religion or baptize 1,000 people. God said move, he moved. God said, righteous Abraham.
That was His present truth.
Right, and then He said, I want you to take your son up. He took his son up. Abraham, you did what I asked you to do, again, exactly the way I asked you to do it. Righteous Abraham. So did Abraham make mistakes? Yes, but the thing is, God didn't ask him not to make those mistakes, and God didn't ask him to make those mistakes, but when God asked him to do something, he did it.
Amen. That's right.
In the meantime, we have freedom of choice. But when God says left, you have no choice. If you want to go right, you can, but you got to go left. You got to go left. So, I guess you'd say right, because left isn't right. So,
like Jesus said, the two sons. One said, "I'll go out in the vineyard," and didn't. The other
right.
said, "I won't," but did. Which one did the will? The one that did.
Right, and it's so important that it's not what you do, it's whatever He asked you to do. You know, if I go and give a Revelation seminar and I don't get any baptisms, I do 20 seminars, I get no baptisms. And the other guy, he's like got 500 baptisms and 3 seminars. Who's more successful? We're both equally successful because God has to tell those who are not going to come to heaven just as much going to tell those who are going to come to heaven, because He's not going to. Nobody's going to be able to go to heaven or go to hell and say, "But you didn't give me a chance." No, God's going to give every man a chance. It's whether or not they're listening to that still small voice or whether they'll listen to it and follow it.
And that's the hardest mission, is to when you know that they're going to say no, you still have to take them the message.
Right, and you know, there's no gratification except for you know that if you're a servant of God, your gratification is in heaven, not here. So don't worry about it.
Noah 120 years and nobody except his family. That
Right. And so everybody knew that it was going to rain, or if they hadn't seen it before even. Now, okay, well that thought threw me off here for a minute.
Let's put our chairs on the other side now and see the other side or not.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and go to the other side for a minute.
So that 46 years.
Well, here, hold on a second. Let me go ahead. Let me introduce this first on this side. We'll go to the other side.
All right.
One thing I want you to notice is that this is the farthest away time. So as we're going this way, we're getting more modern, right? So if this is the past, this is the part we probably got to worry about in our day, right? Because this is the end of the world. That's the beginning of the story. This is the end of the story. And we live in the end of the story. We better be paying attention to what's going on down here. Does that make sense? Now, this only has 3 angels on it, but it's the 3 last angels of the 7 trumpets. So the first 4 trumpets have already happened, and now you have Revelation 9, 9th chapter of Revelation 9:1. Year 606 is here, and here we see 606. So what happened in 606? The rise of Mohammedanism. This power stood up against the prince of the princesses because it did not exist until this period, Revelation 9:1, a star fell. So Mohammedanism and Muhammad started in 606. And when you're reading Revelation 9:1, it says an angel came down from heaven, or a star fell from heaven, and an angel came and opened the bottomless pit. The star falling from heaven is the false prophet Muhammad. Okay, now why does this angel start in 606, but the prophecy of this Mohammedan group is from 1299 to 1449? Because a trumpet is blown, that doesn't mean the woe starts yet. So the trumpet period might be this long, and maybe the woe part's only this last part. So we can't mix up trumpet and woe. Trumpet is a time period, so the time period started in 606 and goes all the way to 1449, but it wasn't until 1299 that these forces got together and really caused a lot of havoc, and that's when God's going, whoa, you better, whoa. This is something, it's not something you're going to really enjoy. You're going to go like, whoa. Okay, and then the next woe, this one is exactly consecutive after it. So these 2 are one after the other. And then there's a gap between the last one, which happens in our day. So these 2 are history. And they happened before 1843. And then this last one's at the bottom of the chart because it had not happened yet. Because at this time, when the chart was made, there had not been, the 7th trumpet had not been blown yet.
When did the 3rd woe start?
The 3rd woe started at 9/11. So, anyways, what I want you to notice is that this is at the end of the chart, and it's a small corner. And now let's go to the other side. Betsy, I'm going to ask you just to hold this, because I'm not going to have a stand for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little hard for the...
Yeah,
Everybody will be really close to you.
Okay, now that's filming, so go ahead and shine that over. Yeah, okay. All right, so, and actually I'm going to need you over here. Okay, so some striking similarities, and there are some things that are different on this chart. So, let's go back to the first question again. How many 2520s do you see on this chart?
Oh.
It went
There's-
blank. blank.
That's fine, it's going.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm going to show you some 2520s. Okay,
down
here's
there.
where you see the number. 2,520 years. 2,520 years. So a lot of the opponents to saying that charts are false or whatever, they'll actually say that the 2520 is not on the 50 chart. Well, I have a hard time missing that. But besides that, top of that says 677. Right here is 1844. There's 2520 right there. And again, the statue itself is a 2520.
So you said that's a new one?
This is 1850.
That's the one they later redid?
No, the one that you're probably talking about is 1863, which removes both of these charts.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to grab the quote here from, so we had a quote from Ellen White saying, we had an Ellen White quote saying that that the chart we just looked at was from the Lord. Now, let's see what she has to say about the 50 chart. He says, I saw that the truth should be made plain upon tables, and that the earth and the fullness thereof is the Lord's, and that necessary means should not be spared to make it plain. I saw that it was the old chart was directed by the hand of the Lord. That's the one in the back. And that not a figure should be altered except for by inspiration. And another quote, this is 5MR, page 203. On our return to Brother Nichols, the Lord gave me a vision. So God himself told Ellen White through vision, not her thoughts. This isn't a pioneer mistake. This is God telling her in a vision, this is what I want you to do. Showed me the truth must be made plain upon tables, and it would cause many to decide for the truth by the third angel's message, and the two former being made plain upon tables.
So the other chart was the first and second angel, and this includes the third. Is that what she's saying?
But the thing is, she's talking about Brother Nichols. And anyways, this is the chart. It says published by O. Nichols. So let me read the next one. It says, after these seven thunders uttered their voices, the injunction comes to John as to Daniel in regard to the little book. Seal up the little book. Seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered. These relate to future events which will be disclosed in their order. Daniel shall stand in his lot at the end of the days. John sees the little book unsealed. So what did she just say? She says, Daniel's going to stand in his lot in the last days, and John sees the little book unsealed. So she's connecting the little book with Daniel standing in his lot. And of course, as we know, the little book is Daniel. So, but in the last days, obviously Daniel has a work to do, and this is Daniel. Then Daniel's prophecies have their proposed place in the first, second, and third angels' messages to be given to the world. The unsealing of the little book was a message in relation to time. So the unsealing of the little book was a message in relation to time. Let's think about that for a minute. Jesus came down from heaven, and he opened a little book. And the message that came out of this book was in relation to time. What times? The 1260, the 1290, the 1335, the 2520, the 1335. And so all these time periods, there was 7 of them that ended between 1798 and 1844. And this was the message in relation to time. Okay, so now, and all of these are pulled out of Daniel. Now, like I said, even if Daniel doesn't say the words 2520, he doesn't say 1260 either. What does he say? He says
time times and a half.
Time. So he uses time to mean the word means years. But I guess time doesn't mean years in Leviticus. That's what they tell me. So anyways, you know what? You can follow the leader, but the blind will always lead the blind into a ditch. It's best to have your own connection with the Lord, and let all men be liars and let God be the truth.
Amen.
Now, so here we have the 3 angels. We have the first angel, fear God and give glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. That's the first angel, right? Second angel, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Third angel, here has the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, which is those who don't receive the mark of the beast. And the third angel's message is don't receive the mark of the beast because you're going to be in trouble and you're busted. Now, this shows you the date. So the first angel's message came in 1837. That's when it came. Adventism today doesn't even know its history. Adventism doesn't teach that the 3 angels' message already came. They teach that someday the Adventists are going to preach preach against the Sunday law, and we're going to go out and we're going to get the 3 angels' messages as if they hadn't already been given. We're going to repeat the 3 angels' message, but here's when they were given. We're repeating, we're not giving. So in 1837, the first angel's message comes. In 1843, the churches closed their doors on the message. God says, Babylon is fallen, come out of her, my people. And we go, and then all the churches are called Babylon at that point in time and fallen. And in 1844, that's when the judgment began, and the third angel's message is, don't receive the mark of the beast, because that's when you receive the seal of God of the mark of the beast. That's the judgment. Now, when you're looking at this chart, you'll notice there's Christ and there's more angels. So what are we looking at? This is Revelation 14, right? Well, guess what? That's the 13. This is 14:14. Here's 14:17 and 14:18, 19. So all this is a continuation of the story. We always stop at the third angel, but there's more information. It says, behold, behold a white cloud, and upon the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having in his hand a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And then it says, and another angel came out of the temple crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap. So when we get to the third angel, God is in a reaping time. That's why he has a sickle in his hand. And these are the reaping angels. So when we give that third angel's message, that's when God's going to be reaping the earth. For good or for bad. That's the reaping time. And when all the harvest is in, we're done. So that's what's going on here. And then, now notice also, when is Christ going to the most holy place? 1844. Well, this is the line of 1844 right here, all the way across. 1844, 1844, 1844. In 1844, Christ went into the most holy place. And this is showing that, we didn't understand the sanctuary and its relation to what we were understanding in the previous chart time. So as we came to this understanding, this is placed on the chart to make it plain upon tables that he may read it, or can run with it, and it will not lie, and it will speak. So now, a couple things. Is there anything you see different about these horses than the ones we saw on the other side? It looks like they take up about 1/4 of the chart rather than the 16th of the chart.
Yeah, a lot bigger.
It's very prominent. I think God's trying to say, hey, this stuff's important, but this stuff's real important too. Very important. And it comes down to the very end, and here's the seventh angel sound, and then the third woe comes quickly, and then the 7 last plagues. That's the end of time. So this is the very end of time. Where are we at in this whole thing? We're right here. We've passed all this. This is how much is left of time. And those reaping angels will do all their work within this time right here. So now, watch this. Okay, so I'm not going to go there just yet. So starting with these angels, this empire here, we saw that the first woe, or the fifth trumpet, started in 606 with Muhammad. But the woe begins in July 27, 1299. So let's read this in Revelation 8:13. I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. The first woe commenced July 27, 1299. We saw that 1299 and a 1449 on the other side, which is, we'll see it here. When Ottoman, the founder of the Turkish Empire, made his first attack upon the